The courtroom was silent except for the soft hum of air recyclers. Captain Marcus Vale stood in the center of the room, his hands locked behind his back. His uniform was clean but wrinkled. Dark circles under his eyes showed he had not slept, well in weeks. 12 judges sat in a half-circle around him. Their faces were hard like stone. Admiral Cross was there too, sitting in the front row. Vale had known Cross for 20 years. They had served together on 3 ships. Now Cross would not even look at him. "Captain Vale," said Judge Parker, the head of the United Earth Council. Her voice was cold. "You have been charged with treason against humanity. How do you answer?" Vale lifted his chin. "Not guilty." A few people in the gallery whispered. Most of them were reporters. Some were families of the crew who had died on his mission. Their angry eyes burned into his back. "The evidence shows otherwise," Judge Parker continued. She touched a control pad. A hologram appeared in the center of the room. It showed Vale's ship, the Aurora's Edge, floating in space near a massive alien vessel. "This recording was made by your own ship's computer," she said. "It shows you making unauthorized contact with the Keth Empire. You shared human technology with them. You told them about our defenses. You put every human life at risk." Vale watched the hologram. He remembered that day clearly. The Keth ship had been damaged. Their distress signal was weak but desperate. Any decent captain would have helped them. "I saved their lives," Vale said. "Their ship was dying. 63 beings would have died in the cold of space. And in return you gave them our communication codes," Judge Parker snapped. "You showed them how our weapons work. You revealed the location of our home worlds." "I tried to prevent a war," Vale said, his voice growing stronger. "The Keth were afraid of us. They thought we were invaders. I showed them we could be friends." "Friends?" Judge Parker's laugh was bitter. "Look at the result of your friendship." The hologram changed. Now it showed burning human colonies. Ships exploded in silent flashes. Thousands of people died in the images that followed. 3 colonies destroyed, Judge Parker said. 15,000 humans dead. All because you decided to trust the enemy. Vale's hands trembled. He had seen these images before. They haunted his dreams, but he knew the truth. "The Keth did not attack those colonies," he said. "Something else did. Something worse was coming. I tried to warn you." "More lies," said Judge Turner, another council member. "The attack ships were clearly Keth design. We have the wreckage to prove it." "They were not Keth," Vale insisted. "The Keth were running from something that hunts entire worlds. I saw it in their data files. A machine intelligence that—" "Enough!" Judge Parker slammed her hand on the desk. "You have already caused enough damage with your wild stories. The Keth played you for a fool, Captain. They used your kindness to gather intelligence, then they attacked us." Vale looked around the room. Every face showed the same thing. They had already decided. Nothing he said would matter. Admiral Cross finally stood up. His old friend walked to the center of the room. His steps were slow and heavy. "Marcus," Cross said quietly, "I have known you for 20 years. You were a good officer, a good man, but you made a terrible mistake." "You know me, Tom," Vale said, using Cross's first name. "You know I would never betray humanity." Cross's face was sad. "I know you meant well. But good intentions do not bring back the dead. 15,000 people, Marcus. 15,000. "I tried to save them," Vale whispered. "All of them. Human and Keth alike." "The decision is made," Judge Parker announced. She stood up. All the other judges stood with her. "Marcus, Vale, you are found guilty of treason against humanity. You are stripped of your rank as captain. You are removed from the Earth Defense Force. Your ship is confiscated." Vale felt his legs go weak. He had expected this, but hearing it still hurt. "Furthermore," Judge Parker continued, "you are sentenced to exile. You will be given a small scout ship with basic supplies. You will be escorted to the Outer Rim and released beyond our borders. You are never to return to human space." "For how long?" Vale asked. Judge Parker's smile was cruel. "Forever." The courtroom erupted. Reporters shouted questions. Family members of the dead screamed at him. Security guards moved forward to take him away, but Vale was not finished. He stepped forward, his voice rising above the noise. "You are making a mistake," he shouted. "The Keth were not our enemies. They were refugees. Something is hunting them, something that eats planets, and now it knows where we are." "Remove him," Judge Parker ordered. Two guards grabbed Vale's arms. As they dragged him toward the door, he kept shouting, "When the real enemy comes, you will remember this day. You will remember that you sent away the one man who could have helped you." The heavy doors of the courtroom slammed shut. The sound echoed through the corridor like a gunshot. 3 days later, Vale stood in the cargo bay of the scout ship Wanderer. It was a small vessel, built for one person. The cargo hold was packed with basic supplies: food for 6 months, water recyclers, basic tools, and a small fusion reactor. Admiral Cross was there to see him off. The old man looked tired and sad. "I am sorry it came to this, Marcus," Cross said. "Are you?" Vale asked. "You voted to exile me." "I voted to save your life," Cross replied. "Half the council wanted you executed. At least this way you have a chance." Vale picked up his small bag of personal items. There was not much in it. A few books, some photos, his father's watch. "Tom," he said, turning to face his old friend, "what I told them about the Keth, about something hunting them. It was true." Cross sighed. "Even if it was, what does it matter now? The Keth are gone. Their ships disappeared after the attacks. Whatever was hunting them is probably gone too." "You are wrong," Vale said. "It is still out there, and it is still coming." "Maybe," Cross said, "but that is not your problem anymore." The ship's pilot, a young officer named Blake, appeared in the doorway. "Sir, we are ready to depart." Cross nodded. He looked at Vale one last time. "Take care of yourself, Marcus. Try to find some peace out there." Vale walked up the ramp into the Wanderer. The ship was small but well built. Everything he needed to survive was there, but survival was not enough. Not anymore. As the ship lifted off from Earth, Vale looked down at the blue and white planet. Below, it was beautiful. It was home, and he would probably never see it again. But as the Wanderer jumped to hyperspace, carrying him toward the unknown regions of the galaxy, Vale made a promise to himself. Someday, he would return, and when he did, he would bring proof of what was really coming for humanity. The exile had begun, but Marcus Vale was not finished fighting for his people, even if they no longer wanted him to. The stars stretched into lines of light as the ship jumped into the void. Behind him, Earth grew smaller and smaller until it was just another point of light in the darkness. But Vale was not afraid of the dark. He had work to do. 5 years had passed since Marcus Vale was exiled from human space. 5 long years of surviving in the dark corners of the galaxy, where law meant nothing, and strength was the only currency that mattered. The Wanderer drifted slowly toward Haven Station, a rusted collection of metal boxes welded together around an old asteroid. The station spun lazily in the void, its dim lights flickering like dying stars. It was the kind of place where no one asked questions and everyone minded their own business. Vale sat in his pilot chair, older now, with gray streaks in his dark hair and lines around his eyes. His clothes were patched and worn. The ship's hull bore scars from pirates and micrometeorites. But both man and machine were still functional, still surviving. "Haven Station, this is the Wanderer," he spoke into his comm. "Requesting docking. Permission," a gravelly voice answered. "What is your business, Wanderer?" "Supply run. I have salvage to trade. Dock 7. Fee is 50 credits. Vale smiled grimly. Everything cost money out here, even breathing clean air. The docking process was rough. Haven Station's equipment was old and unreliable, but Vale had become expert at landing in difficult places. The Wanderer settled into the docking clamps with a metallic clang. Vale gathered his trade goods from the cargo hold. Rare metals, power cells, and computer parts he had salvaged from dead ships. It was not much, but it would buy him food and Fuel for another month. The station's corridors were crowded and dirty. Alien species mixed with humans, all of them looking desperate or dangerous. The air smelled of machine oil and unwashed bodies. Music and shouting came from the bars and gambling dens. Vale made his way to Murphy's trading post, a cluttered shop run by an old Irish trader. Murphy was one of the few honest dealers on the station. "Well, look what the Void dragged in," Murphy said with a grin. He was a short, round man with wild gray hair. Marcus Vale, the ghost of the Outer Rim. "Hello, Murphy," Vale said, setting his goods on the counter. "What is the market like today?" Murphy examined the salvage with practiced eyes. "Not bad. Power cells are always in demand. These rare metals, where did you find them?" "Derelict. Ship near the Broken Stars. Looked like it had been drifting for decades." Murphy nodded. "I can give you 800 credits for the lot." It was a fair price. Vale was about to accept when shouting erupted from the corridor outside. Then came the sound of weapons fire. Both men ducked behind the counter as energy bolts crashed through the shop window. Murphy cursed in 3 languages. "Pirates?" Vale asked, drawing his sidearm. "Worse," Murphy said, his face pale. "Refugees. Desperate ones." More shouting, then screaming. Vale could hear alien voices mixed with human ones. The sound of running feet echoed through the corridors. "Stay here," Vale told Murphy. He moved to the broken window and looked out. What he saw made his blood freeze. Dozens of beings filled the corridor. But these were not pirates or smugglers. These were families. Children clung to their parents. The elderly leaned on walking sticks. Their clothes were torn and dirty. Their faces showed pure terror, and they were not human. Vale recognized them immediately. The blue-gray skin, the 4 arms, the large black eyes. They were Keth. The same species he had tried to help 5 years ago. The same species humanity, blamed for the colony attacks. "Dear God," Vale whispered. A Keth female carrying a small child stumbled and fell near the shop entrance. The child was crying, a sound like wind chimes in a storm. Station security was moving toward them, weapons raised. Vale did not think. He ran out of the shop and helped the female to her feet. She looked at him with those large black eyes, full of fear and confusion. "Please," she said in broken human speech. "No hurt. We run from death." "Get inside," Vale said, guiding her into the shop. Murphy stared in shock. "Are you crazy?" Murphy hissed. "Those are Keth. If security sees us helping them, then we will deal with security," Vale said firmly. More Keth refugees pushed into the shop. Men, women, children, all of them exhausted and afraid. They spoke in their own language, quick and musical, but Vale could hear the panic in their voices. One of them stepped forward. He was tall even for a Keth, with scars across his blue-gray skin. He wore the remains of what looked like a military uniform. "You are human," the scarred Keth said in perfect English. "Why do you help us?" "Because you need help," Vale replied. "I am Marcus Vale. Who are you?" The Keth's eyes widened. "Vale? The human who saved the medical ship Harmony of Stars?" Vale felt his heart skip. "You know about that?" "I am Commander Rex of the Keth Defense Fleet," the alien said, placing all 4 hands over his chest in a gesture of respect. "You are legend among my people. The human who showed mercy when his own kind would not." "Your people attacked human colonies," Vale said carefully. 15,000 of my people died." Rex's face darkened. "No, not us. We never attacked your colonies. We were fleeing when those attacks happened, fleeing from the Devourers." The word hit Vale like a physical blow. "Devourers? Machine minds from the dark between galaxies," Rex said, his voice dropping to a whisper. "They consume everything, planets, stars, entire civilizations. They came to our space 3 years ago. We fought them, we lost." Other Keth gathered around their commander. Vale could see the trauma in their faces. These were survivors of something terrible. "How many of you escaped?" Vale asked. These are the last, Rex said, gesturing to the refugees in the shop. 500 souls from a civilization of billions. The rest are gone. Fed to the machine. Hunger. Vale felt sick. And you are heading toward human space? We have nowhere else to go, Rex said. But the Devourers follow us. They always follow. They learn from what they consume. They know about your people now. They know your weaknesses. When? Vale asked, though he dreaded the answer. Soon, Rex said. Maybe months, maybe weeks. The Devourers do not hurry. They are patient. They study their prey before they feed. Station security burst into the shop, weapons raised. The lead officer was a human named Carson, a brutal man who worked for whoever paid the most. Step away from the aliens, Carson ordered. These creatures are wanted for questioning. Wanted by who? Vale asked, not moving. Earth security. There is a bounty on any Keth captured alive. Vale felt anger building in his chest. Even out here, light years from Earth, humanity's hatred followed these refugees. They are under my protection, Vale said calmly. Carson laughed. You, a washed-up exile? You have no authority here. I have this, Vale said, showing his weapon. And friends. Murphy stepped up beside him, holding a heavy plasma rifle. The man said they are under protection. Other traders and smugglers began to appear. Word had spread quickly through the station. Some of these people had dealt with Vale before. They knew he was fair and honest, rare qualities in the Outer Rim. Carson looked around nervously. His 3 men were outnumbered 10-1. This is not over, Carson snarled. But he and his men backed out of the shop. Vale turned back to Rex. Commander, I need to know everything about these Devourers. Everything. Why? Rex asked. Your people exiled you. They will not listen to warnings from a traitor. Maybe not, Vale said. But I have to try. Humanity may have cast me out, but they are still my people. Rex studied Vale's face for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. Very well. But you will not like what I tell you. The Devourers are not just machines. They are something far worse. They learn, they adapt, and they never stop hunting. Outside, Vale could hear Carson talking on his comm, calling for reinforcements. Time was running short. Tell me everything, Vale said, and then we need to get you and your people somewhere safe. There is no safe place, Rex said quietly. Not anymore. The Devourers have found us. Soon, they will find your people too. Vale looked at the frightened Keth refugees. Children who would never see their homeworlds again. Families torn apart by an enemy beyond imagination. 5 years ago, he had tried to save both civilizations by building a bridge between them. He had failed then, but maybe, just maybe, he could still save one of them, even if that civilization had exiled him to die in the dark. 2 weeks after meeting Commander Rex, Marcus Vale sat in his ship's communication room, staring at a message that had just been rejected by Earth Command for the 15th time. The red words, "Transmission denied, sender blacklisted," glowed on his screen like a wound. Still trying to warn them? Rex asked from the doorway. The Keth commander had to duck to fit through the human-sized opening. They have to listen eventually, Vale said, though his voice lacked conviction. The Wanderer now carried 23 Keth refugees in its expanded cargo hold. Vale had traded most of his credits for life support upgrades and sleeping pods. It was cramped, but at least they were alive. Your people fear us too much to listen, Rex said sadly. The attacks on your colonies made that fear into hate. Vale turned in his chair. Tell me again about those attacks. Every detail. Rex's forearms moved in a gesture of frustration. I have told you many times. The attack ships looked like ours, but they were wrong. Too smooth, too perfect. Our ships have character, wear marks, personal touches. These were copies made by something that understood our technology but not our culture. The Devourers. Yes, they consumed a Keth fleet and learned to build our ships. But they built them like machines would, without the small imperfections that show a living hand made them. Vale stood and walked to the star chart on his wall. Red pins marked human colonies. Blue pins showed where the fake Keth attacks had happened. Yellow pins marked the last known positions of real Keth fleets. The timing, Vale muttered, studying the pattern. The attacks happened right after you jumped toward human space. The Devourers knew you would flee to us. They wanted to make sure we would not help you. Smart machines, Rex agreed grimly. They isolated us from potential allies before beginning their hunt. An alarm chimed on Vale's console. Incoming message from the Titan Colony communication relay. Vale's pulse quickened. Maybe finally someone would listen. He opened the message. Admiral Cross's face appeared on screen, older and more tired than Vale remembered. Marcus, Cross said, his voice heavy with authority. This is your final warning. Stop trying to contact Earth Command. Your messages are causing panic among the outer colonies. If you continue, I will have no choice but to send ships to arrest you. The message ended. Vale stared at the blank screen for a long moment. Your friend? Rex asked. Once, Vale said quietly. Now he thinks I am either insane or a traitor working with your people to spread fear. What will you do? Vale looked at the star chart again. The outer colonies were scattered across dozens of systems. Mining worlds, research stations, farming, planets. Millions of people who had no idea what was coming for them. If they will not listen to words, Vale said slowly, maybe they will listen to actions. 3 days later, the communication relay at New Perth went silent. The massive dish that connected the mining colony to the broader human network simply stopped working. When repair crews arrived, they found the control center had been burned out by precise weapon strikes. In the wreckage, they found a data chip with a simple message. The Devourers are coming. Evacuate now. Monsieur Vale. Within hours, every news service in human space was reporting the story. The mysterious return of the exiled captain, the burning of a critical communication relay, wild claims about machine monsters from beyond the galaxy. Most people dismissed it as the actions of a madman, but some began to ask questions. Vale struck again a week later. The military depot at Ceres Junction, a supply base for Earth's outer defense fleet. He waited until the skeleton night crew was asleep, then slipped inside with Keth help. Rex's people were experts at stealth. They did not hurt anyone, but they destroyed the weapon stockpiles and fuel reserves, leaving another data chip with recordings of Keth refugees telling their stories, children describing the day their worlds went dark, survivors explaining how the machine fleets consumed everything in their path. Admiral Cross himself led the response. 3 destroyers and a cruiser, the finest ships in Earth's fleet. Vale watched them arrive at the depot from a hidden position in the asteroid belt. They are hunting you now, Rex observed. Good, Vale said. Maybe now they will pay attention. But the military response only made things worse. Earth Command labeled Vale a terrorist. They offered a 1 million credit bounty for his capture. News. Reports called him the burning ghost of the Rim and claimed he had allied with alien enemies to attack human civilization. Vale felt each word like a knife in his heart. But he pressed on. His next target was bigger. Gateway Station, the massive trade hub that controlled shipping routes to 20 colony worlds. It was heavily defended, but Vale had advantages the military did not expect. You want me to what? Captain Davis of the freighter Lucky Strike stared at Vale in disbelief. They were meeting in a hidden asteroid base that had become Vale's temporary headquarters. Carry these refugees as passengers, Vale repeated. Take them to Gateway Station as if they are normal travelers. They are Keth, Davis said, fear in his voice. If security finds them on my ship, I will be arrested as a collaborator. Not if you follow my plan exactly, Vale said. He slid a credit chip across the table. 200,000. Enough to buy a new ship and retire. Davis stared at the chip. Vale knew the man was desperate. The war scare had ruined trade. Many independent freighters were going bankrupt. What exactly are you planning to do at Gateway? Davis asked. Something that will make them listen, Vale said. 2 days later, the Lucky Strike docked at Gateway Station carrying legitimate cargo and falsified passenger documents. The Keth refugees stayed hidden in specially modified cargo containers. Security scanned the ship, but found nothing suspicious. Vale arrived an hour later in the Wanderer, broadcasting a standard trader's ID. Gateway's traffic control waved him through to a regular docking bay. At exactly 1400 hours, the plan began. Davis started broadcasting on all emergency frequencies. His message was simple. Real Keth refugees were on the station. They had proof that the colony attacks were faked. Anyone who wanted to hear the truth should come to Cargo Bay 7. At the same time, Vale began his real work. He had studied gateways and systems for weeks. Every power relay, every computer node, every backup system. His years as a starship captain had taught him how these places worked. He did not want to hurt anyone, but he needed everyone's attention. The lights went out first. Emergency power kicked in, bathing the station in red light. Then the artificial. Gravity began fluctuating. People floated and stumbled as the field switched on and off. Station security rushed toward the power centers, trying to stop the sabotage. But Vale was always one step ahead. He had mapped their response patterns, predicted their moves. Meanwhile, in Cargo Bay 7, something unprecedented was happening. Dozens of station workers and travelers had come to hear the refugees speak. Keth children told their stories in broken English. Adults showed recordings of their dead worlds. The crowd grew larger, then larger still. Word spread through the stations, communication systems faster than security could stop it. "Listen to them," Davis broadcast. "These people are not our enemies. They are running from something worse, something that is coming for us next." Admiral Cross's voice crackled over the station speakers. "This is Earth Defense Command. Gateway Station is under terrorist attack. All civilians report to emergency shelters immediately." But many people did not move. They stayed in Cargo Bay 7, listening to refugees describe machine fleets that blotted out the stars, worlds stripped bare of all life, civilizations that vanished in days. Vale watched from the station's control center as his plan unfolded. Security forces were trying to restore power and gravity. News reporters were broadcasting live from the cargo bay. The story was spreading across human space faster than any military response could contain it. Then his console showed something that made his blood freeze. Long-range sensors were detecting multiple ship contacts at the edge of the system. Big contacts, moving too fast and too precisely to be human vessels. Vale activated the station's main communication array, overriding all other signals. His voice boomed through every speaker on Gateway Station and transmitted to every ship in the system. "This is Marcus Vale," he said. "Check your long-range sensors. They are here. The Devourers have arrived." On the sensor display, 30 massive objects moved toward Gateway Station like sharks scenting blood. Each one was the size of a small moon, bristling with weapons that had never appeared in any human database. The burning had begun, but not the way Vale had planned. The Gateway Station control room erupted in chaos as 30 massive shapes appeared on the long-range sensors. Officers shouted orders while alarms wailed through the corridors. Red emergency lights bathed everything in blood-colored shadows. "Impossible," whispered Lieutenant Hayes, staring at his screen. "Those readings, each contact is over 50 kilometers long." Marcus Vale stood beside the sensor console, his face grim. "Not impossible. Just something you have never seen before." Station Commander Brooks pushed through the crowd of panicked officers. "Vale, what have you done? Did you lead them here?" "I led no one," Vale said calmly. "The Devourers follow their own schedule. We just happened to be in their path." On the main display, the alien fleet moved with mechanical precision. Each ship was identical, smooth black metal shaped like massive spears. No windows, no visible weapons, just perfect killing machines sliding through space. "Incoming transmission," reported the communications officer. Her voice shook with fear. "Put it on speakers," Brooks ordered. The voice that filled the control room was not organic. It spoke perfect English, but each word was flat and emotionless like a computer reading text. "Human station. You will cease all activity. Prepare for analysis and consumption. Resistance will delay the process but not prevent it. The transmission ended. Silence filled the control room except for the steady beeping of sensors tracking the approaching fleet. Analysis and consumption, Brooks repeated slowly. What does that mean? Commander Rex appeared in the doorway, escorted by 2 security guards. His forearms were bound but his eyes were alert. It means they will study everything about you, Rex said. Your technology, your biology, your culture. Then they will consume it all. Your ships, your people, your entire civilization will become part of their collective knowledge. Shut up, alien, one guard snarled. Let him speak, Vale said sharply. He has fought these things before. Brooks looked between Vale and the Keth commander. How long do we have? Not long, Rex replied. They move slowly because they are confident. Nothing has ever escaped them once they begin their hunt. Vale moved to the tactical display. The Devourer fleet was still 6 hours away at current speed. Gateway Station had defenses, orbital weapon platforms, shield generators, a small garrison, fleet. Commander Brooks, Vale said, you need to evacuate the station. Get every civilian ship moving toward the inner systems. I do not take orders from terrorists, Brooks snapped. Then take them from your sensors, Vale replied, pointing at the display. Those 30 ships? Each one could destroy this entire station with a single salvo. Your weapons will not even scratch their hulls. As if summoned by his words, Admiral Cross's voice crackled over the communication system. Gateway Station, this is Admiral Cross aboard the EDS Retribution. We are moving to intercept the unknown fleet. Vale felt his heart sink. Through the control room windows he could see the approaching task force. 12 Earth defense ships led by Cross's heavy cruiser. It was the most powerful fleet humanity had ever assembled. It would not be enough. Admiral, Vale said into the comm. You know my voice. This is Marcus Vale. Do not engage those ships. They are beyond anything we can fight. Vale. Cross's voice was cold with anger. You have caused enough damage. Surrender now and maybe we can minimize the casualties from your terrorist actions. Tom, listen to me, Vale pleaded, using his old friend's first name. Those are not ships you can fight with conventional weapons. They are machines designed to consume entire civilizations. Get your people out of here. The only thing I am getting out of here is you, Cross replied, in chains. The Earth fleet began to move toward Vale's position. Behind them, the Devourer ships continued their steady approach. Vale realized with sick certainty that his old friend was about to lead 12 ships and 3,000 crew members to their deaths. Commander Brooks, Vale said urgently, I need access to your communication array, full power, all frequencies, so you can call more of your alien friends. Brooks snarled. Vale grabbed the man by his uniform jacket. So I can try to save every human life in this system, including yours. Something in Vale's eyes made Brooks step back. Do it, he told his communications officer. Vale's voice boomed across the system, reaching every ship, every station, every listening post within light hours. This is Marcus Vale speaking to all human forces. The fleet approaching Gateway Station are called Devourers. They are machine intelligences from beyond our galaxy. They consume entire civilizations. Our weapons cannot stop them. All ships, all stations, begin immediate evacuation toward the core systems. This is not a drill. This is not terrorism. This is the end of humanity unless we run. Now. Ignore that transmission. Cross's voice cut across the channel. All ships, maintain course. We will deal with Vale after we investigate these unknown contacts. But doubt was spreading through the fleet. Vale could hear it in the comm chatter between ships, captains asking questions, crew members reporting strange sensor readings. The Devourer ships were like nothing in any human database. Admiral, came a voice from one of Cross's escort ships. These readings are unusual. Each contact shows massive energy signatures. Their hull composition is not matching any known materials. Maintain course, Cross ordered. But Vale could hear uncertainty creeping into his voice. Then the Devourers opened fire. It was not like human weapons. No missiles, no energy beams, no projectiles that sensors could track. One moment, the lead Earth destroyer was there. The next, it simply stopped existing. The ship did not explode or burn, it just vanished as if it had never been built. Holy God! Someone whispered over the comm. A second destroyer disappeared, then a third. The Earth fleet scattered, trying to find targets they could see and weapons they could understand. All ships retreat, Cross finally ordered. Fall back to minimum safe distance. But it was too late. The Devourers had tasted human technology. They moved faster now, their perfect black hulls shifting and changing as they adapted to this new prey. Vale watched from Gateway Station as the massacre unfolded. Admiral Cross's flagship lasted longer than the others, its heavy armor and shields, absorbing whatever force the Devourers used. But even the Retribution could not stand against 30 enemies that existed beyond human understanding. "Tom," Vale whispered, watching his oldest friend's ship break apart in silent explosions. The bridge of the Retribution appeared on the emergency channel. Cross was there, blood running down his face from a head wound. Sparks flew from damaged consoles around him. "All ships," Cross said, his voice steady despite the chaos. "This is Admiral Cross. The unknown contacts they are beyond our ability to engage. Begin immediate evacuation of all outer colonies. Code Black. Repeat, Code Black. Code Black." The highest level of military emergency. The order to abandon everything and run for the core systems. "Tom," Vale said into the comm, "get to an escape pod. Your ship is breaking apart." Cross turned toward the camera. For a moment, the two old friends looked at each other across the void. "Marcus," Cross said quietly, "I was wrong. About everything. You tried to warn us." "Get off that ship," Vale urged. "It is not too late." Cross smiled sadly. "For me it is. But maybe not for everyone else." He turned to his crew. "All hands, abandon ship. That is an order." "Admiral, the pod bays are blocked," reported a young officer. "Hull breaches on decks 5 through 12. Cross nodded slowly. He looked back at the camera one last time. "Marcus, the outer colonies. Get them out. You know the evacuation routes better than anyone." "Tom, that is an order, Captain Vale." The transmission cut off as the Retribution finally broke apart. Vale watched the debris scatter, carrying with it the man who had been his closest friend and his greatest enemy. Around Gateway Station, the surviving Earth ships fled toward the inner systems. Behind them, the Devourer fleet resumed its steady advance. "We have to go," Rex said quietly. "They will be here soon." Vale looked at the tactical display. 30 perfect killing machines, now enhanced with human technology they had consumed, from the destroyed fleet, and behind them long-range sensors showed more contacts, hundreds more. "The evacuation ships," Vale said. "Can we reach them?" "If we leave now," Rex replied. Vale turned to Commander Brooks. "Order full evacuation. Every ship, every person. Move toward the core systems and do not stop." Brooks nodded, all his earlier hostility gone. Fear had a way of clarifying priorities. The Wanderer undocked from Gateway Station. Vale looked back at the massive trade hub. In a few hours it would be gone, consumed by machines that turned civilizations into raw materials for their endless hunger. But maybe, just maybe, the warning had been heard in time. Maybe some of humanity would survive what was coming. The Exile had become the hunter. Now he was the hunted. But the game was far from over. 3 days after the Battle of Gateway Station, the refugee fleet stretched across space like a river of lights fleeing the darkness. Hundreds of ships, cargo haulers, passenger liners, mining vessels, anything that could carry people away from the advancing Devourer swarm. Marcus Vale stood on the bridge of his flagship, a converted cargo hauler called the New Dawn. It was not much to look at, but it had become the command center for humanity's desperate evacuation. Around him, volunteers worked at salvaged equipment, coordinating the movement of over 2 million refugees. "Report," Vale said to Captain Morris, a former merchant marine who had joined the evacuation fleet. Outer colonies are 90% evacuated, Morris replied. But we are losing ships faster than we can count. The Devourers are not just consuming planets now. They are hunting individual vessels. Vale studied the holographic map floating above the command table. Red zones marked areas already consumed by the machine fleet. Yellow zones showed evacuation routes. The red was spreading faster than the yellow could retreat. What about Earth? Vale asked. Still trying to organize their own defense, Morris said with disgust. The High Council refuses to abandon the home system. They think their orbital platforms can stop what destroyed Admiral Cross's fleet. Vale closed his eyes for a moment. Even now, facing extinction, human pride was getting in the way of survival. Sir, called Lieutenant Parker from the sensor station. She was young, maybe 22, and had volunteered when her colony transport was attacked. I am picking up a distress signal. Mining Station Delta 7, they say they have 10,000 people trapped. Vale looked at the map. Delta 7 was deep in the red zone, surrounded by Devourer ships. Too dangerous, Morris said. We would lose half the fleet trying to reach them. And if we do not try, we lose 10,000 people for certain, Vale replied. Sir. Commander Rex appeared beside them. The Keth leader had become Vale's closest advisor during the evacuation. I may have a solution. My people know ways to hide from the Devourers, techniques we learned during our own flight. What kind of techniques? Vale asked. The machines hunt by detecting energy signatures, Rex explained. But there are dead zones in space. Places where natural phenomena mask our presence. Asteroid fields, nebulae, the gravity shadows of gas giants. Vale studied the route to Delta 7. There was an asteroid field halfway there, and a small nebula beyond that. How many ships? He asked Morris. For a rescue mission? Maybe 20, fast ones. Make it happen, Vale ordered. I will lead the mission personally. 2 hours later, a small fleet of modified ships moved through the asteroid field toward Delta 7. Vale piloted the Wanderer, now equipped with Keth stealth technology that Rex's people had shared. The other ships followed in single file, their engines running on minimal power. Contact ahead, reported the lead scout. 3 Devourer ships orbiting the mining station. Vale could see them through his viewport. Perfect black spears hanging in space like sleeping predators. Each one was large enough to hold a human city. Remember, Vale said over the comm. No weapons, no active sensors. We go in silent, load the civilians, and get out before they notice us. The rescue fleet drifted toward Delta 7 like debris floating in the void. The mining station was a cluster of habitation modules connected to a massive asteroid. Its distress beacon had gone silent, but Vale could see lights in the windows. People were still alive in there. Docking Bay 7 is clear, reported the scout ship. Beginning approach. One by one, the rescue ships attached to the station. Vale was among the first through the airlock. The station's corridors were packed with frightened civilians, miners and their families, station workers, even some tourists who had been visiting when the evacuation order came. Thank God, said station manager Ross, a tired-looking woman, with grease stains on her jumpsuit. We thought no one was coming. How many people? Vale asked. 9,812, Ross replied. Plus supplies and personal belongings. No belongings, Vale said firmly. People only. We have maybe an hour before the Devourers notice something is wrong. The evacuation began immediately. Children were carried first, then the elderly, then everyone else. The rescue ships filled beyond their safety limits, but there was no choice. Every person left behind would be consumed by the machines. Sir, came an urgent voice over Vale's comm. This is Scout 3. The Devourer ships are moving. They are turning toward the station. Vale felt his blood freeze. How long? Maybe 20 minutes. There were still 3,000 people on the station. Vale looked around the crowded corridor. Families holding hands, children crying, old men and women who had spent their lives mining asteroids, never expecting to die running from machine monsters. Load faster, he ordered. but he knew they would not make it in time. That was when Commander Rex appeared with a group of his Keth refugees. "Captain Vale," Rex said formally, "my people volunteer to stay behind and slow the Devourers. We can rig the station's power core to explode when they dock. It will not destroy them, but it might buy you time." "No," Vale said immediately. "I will not sacrifice your people for mine." "You already did," Rex replied with something that might have been a smile. 5 years ago, when you chose to help a damaged Keth ship instead of following your orders. You saved us then, now we save you." Before Vale could argue, alarms began blaring through the station. The Devourer ships were accelerating, their perfect hulls beginning to glow with energy. "Go," Rex ordered. "Take your people and go." The next few minutes were chaos. Rescue ships undocked and fled into the asteroid field while Rex's volunteers worked frantically to prepare their trap. Vale watched from the Wanderer's bridge as the last civilian transport cleared the station. The first Devourer ship reached Delta 7 and extended metal tentacles to dock with the mining station. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the asteroid exploded. The blast was not large enough to destroy the Devourer ship, but it knocked it away from the station's wreckage. More importantly, it created a massive cloud of debris and energy that masked the rescue fleet's escape. "Jump," Vale ordered. "All ships, emergency jump to rendezvous point 7. The rescue fleet vanished into hyperspace just as the remaining Devourer ships moved to investigate the explosion. Behind them, Rex and his volunteers had bought 10,000 human lives with their own. 6 months later, Vale stood in the observation deck of Haven Colony, humanity's new home in the Andromeda galaxy. It was not much, a collection of space stations and dome cities built around a small star system, but it was far from the Devourers, and it was growing. The evacuation had succeeded beyond anyone's hopes. Over 800 million humans had escaped to Andromeda, along with refugees from a dozen other species that the Devourers had displaced. It was not all of humanity, but it was enough to rebuild. Vale watched ships arriving and departing from the colony's docking bays. Trade vessels, exploration scouts, even a few warships built with new technology learned from their alien allies. Humanity was adapting, as it always did. "The council meeting is about to begin," said Captain Morris, approaching from behind. Vale nodded. The Refugee Council was humanity's new government, led by survivors from every colony and ship that had made the long journey to Andromeda. They had asked Vale to serve as Admiral of the Defense Fleet, the man who would protect their new home from any future threats. It was ironic. The same people who had exiled him as a traitor now wanted him to lead their military. "Admiral Vale," Morris said, using the new title. "There is something else. Long-range sensors have detected Devourer scouts at the edge of our galaxy. They are following our trail." Vale was not surprised. The machines were patient, but they never stopped hunting. "How long?" he asked. "Maybe 5 years. Maybe 10. Vale looked out at the busy colony, at the ships and stations and people building new lives among alien stars. Human children played in the corridors alongside young aliens from a dozen different species. Scientists shared knowledge. Engineers built wonders that no single civilization could have created alone. "Then we have time," Vale said. "Time to prepare. Time to build alliances. Time to become something the Devourers have never faced before." "What is that?" Morris asked. Vale smiled, remembering his old friend Admiral Cross's final words. The man who had voted to exile him, then died defending the evacuation that Vale had organized. "A united galaxy," Vale said. "When the Devourers come again, they will not face scattered, frightened civilizations. They will face all of us, standing together." He turned away from the observation window and walked toward the council chambers. There was work to do, ships to build, alliances to forge, a new kind of war to prepare for. The exile had become the savior. The traitor had become the hero. But Marcus Vale knew the truth was simpler than that. He was just a man who had tried to do what was right, even when no one believed him. even when it cost him everything, even when it meant burning bright enough to light humanity's path through the darkness between the stars.